Hello everyone, it's Cassie and welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. Today we're going to be using our dies in a creative way. I am going to be making a Get Well card, but let's talk about what we're using first. I have the brand new Healing Wishes stamp set. I've used this before. It's beautiful. I really love the font of these and I like how big the sentiments are. And of course there are matching dies to go along with it, which I love that also. We're going to be using the tiny Bandage. That's also new. So cute. You can make these adorable band-aids, and I know that the rest of the Trinity Stamps team has gone wonderfully hog wild with those. I did bring in these Boo Boo Buddies clay embellishments, but I don't end up using them. And then I'm bringing in this very old Slimline Skelly. He's so cool. He was obviously brought out for Halloween, and he fits perfectly on a Slimline card, but I have him, and I thought he's going to go perfectly for what I'm thinking. I'm also bringing in some soft white vellum and then some rip and stick sheets of tape. So we are going to make an X-ray. At least that was the hope I was going for. So I'll pull out a piece of my vellum, and then I'm going to pull out a piece of this rip and stick paper. It's double-sided. So I'm going to peel off one of the pieces or one of the sides, and then we're going to stick our vellum right down to it. I was thinking I could salvage some of those pieces. I don't end up salvaging any of it, any of the excess, and that's okay too. So we're going to stick that vellum right down on top, and then we're going to end up trimming off any of the excess where there's no vellum, but there's just some of the tape. You could keep it if you want to. I decided not to. All right, and so now you have your vellum, and you've got a shiny side and your matte side. The matte side is your actual vellum. The shiny side is your release paper, so keep that in mind. I'm pulling out my little Slimline Skelly, and we're going to just position him around. I don't need him to be full size, so I'm actually going to just tape him down and run him through the die cutting machine like this, because I don't need all of him. And then I'm going to trim off the excess, and we'll save that other piece with the vellum and the release paper for another time. So I've got this piece of black cardstock. This is actually trimmed down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so it's the full front of an A2 size card. And I was kind of trying to play around with how I wanted this to look. Did I want this to be a full size X-ray? Do I want it to be partial and then be landscape card? So I started out by trying to make this look like a landscape card, and I end up trimming it down later, but we'll just go with what we have for now. I'm keeping the negative piece so that if I want to stick down my pieces using that, which I do for the first few pieces, it's easy to do. And I'm just using my reverse tweezers after I've pulled off the release paper. Now, the reason you want to use something like the tape I'm using or the rip and stick tape that I am using is that vellum, if you've not used it before, I'm sure most of you have, but if you haven't used it before, vellum will show whatever adhesive you're using behind it. So if you decided you just wanted to use a dollop of glue, you're going to see it through your vellum. So when you use something like this rip and stick full-size sheet of tape, it covers the entire bit of vellum, and so it's all adhesive back there. So that's all you're going to see. All right, for a few of these pieces, as you can see, Skelly is upside down, and I've got some of those die cut pieces that are still inside of him. What I didn't realize is that some of the pieces, the release paper disappeared, or it's stuck in my negative piece, and the vellum with the sticky stuck in there. And that happened actually with the fingers. You'll see here as I pull away, like, oh, there's some of the fingers. So we're just going to go ahead. At this point, I'm not going to use the negative piece anymore. I'll kind of use it as a guide just to see. But I'm going to go ahead and stick down some of those pieces where I think they're just going to go. So might as well, right? Stick it down. The reason you don't really necessarily need the negative is maybe you want Skelly to be positioned different. Like maybe you want him to be waving. I don't know. You can use the mask that is, or not mask, but the shadow piece that's in there, and you can attach him down just the way you see him, or you can attach him down however you want. You can move him around, which is kind of fabulous. I'm going to keep him mostly the same, and I'm just using the negative piece as a guide. I just keep looking at it, peeling off the release paper, using reverse tweezers, and also using my pickup stick for those tiny little pieces. That's really good for those. And for the most part, you won't really have an issue. And if you do, as long as you don't push it down too hard, you can always move your pieces. So we've got his little pelvis, and then we're going to get his jaw in there along with his throat I see, and I put his throat down a little too close, so I'm going to have to pull that up and then put it down again. And then we'll just start working the rest of those pieces, the rest of his other shoulder and whatnot. But this was so much fun to do. I am going to leave one of the pieces. I don't know if you saw it or noticed it in the preview. His wrist is broken. So I'm going to wait on putting his wrist down. I'll just stick the piece on there and use it as a guide. And then before we stick that down, we're actually going to cut it like he's broken. I'll put down his legs, and then I'm going to pull in his skull, taking out his eyes and nose, and peel off that release paper, and then we can stick his head down on top. Obviously, those are sticking over the top. You can just flip that over and trim off the excess. I did have that sped up about 4 times, so now we're back to 2 times the speed. But yeah, I had him sped up pretty quickly. So now I'm going to take that one bone, and I'm not going to pretend like I know all the names. I am not a scientist or a doctor or any of those. So I just cut the bone like it was broken, and I'll put down one of the pieces, and then I'll do the same with the other. So it's not super noticeable, but I do have another idea. Believe it or not, my husband gave me a really cool idea. I think I'm going to see if I can try it. So stick around. Not on this particular video or this card, but I have other ideas. All right, so now we're going to cut out our tiny bandage pieces, and then I'm going to stamp out my sentiments using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. It's just a nice crisp black pigment ink. I like how black it is and how it's just very crisp. It's perfect for embossing. I'm not going to emboss these, but I do like it for that. So we've got healing hugs, and then we also have the other sentiment that says wishing you a speedy recovery. And so I'll stamp that one down also. Once I get that stamped down, we'll bring in those matching dies. Might as well. We have them. So we'll tack those down with a little bit of mint tape and run that through our die cutting machine. And at this point, I still wasn't convinced how I wanted this card to lay out. So finally decided we're going to go ahead and trim him down. And then we're going to trim down a piece of gray cardstock that's just going to sit right behind him. It'll shadow that. And so it'll look a little bit like an x-ray. And we'll start adhering our pieces together. So I'll put our Band-Aid together. We're going to put our sentiment right over the center. We're going to put the healing hugs over that. We'll save the wishing you a speedy recovery for the inside of the card. But we'll go ahead and glue that down. And then we can glue down our x-ray to our gray mat. So it's starting to come together. Hopefully you saw that happening. And then I'll just kind of play around with how I want that to be on there. And then once we've decided, we'll go ahead and glue down our x-ray. And then I'm going to use some foam squares, foam tape, to put down our Band-Aid. Just avoiding the holes, because if you put it over the top of the holes, it will show. And then we'll peel off that release paper, and we can stick our Band-Aid down right on top. I do like how the x-ray's at a little bit of a wonky angle. It's kind of fun. And then we can use some liquid glue to adhere down the heart. So as you know, I decided not to use the Boo Boo Buddies. And so I am going to bring in something else, but we'll put our other Band-Aid together. This one's going to go on the inside of the card. Put a heart over the top. And then we'll glue down all of our pieces. I'm going to make that Band-Aid just look like it's hanging off the edges. I like doing that. It kind of gives you the illusion that there's more going on outside of the card. All right, so we can glue down our sentiment now. And then we can trim off the excess of the Band-Aid. The embellishment I did decide to use is some Strawberry Twinkle. These are a very light pink, and they have these sparkly bits to them. I'm going to use my pickup stick to put those down. We'll glue those down with a little bit of liquid glue, and the tiny tray is holding everything in place. So once I get all those put down, that's actually going to finish off the card. I really love how this turned out. You know how sometimes you have something in your head, and when it really pans out, you just feel good. So I'd love to know what you think of this card. Leave a comment down in the comment section down below. If you like this video, hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And as always, big, huge thanks for sticking around, watching videos, and all the things that you do to support me. I appreciate you, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.